You are listening to Down Home. Honeymoon, anxiety, adjustment, and acceptance. According to this online source that I found, these are the 4 stages of what we commonly call culture shock. As is the case with a lot of things in life, everyone's experience with this concept is different. I know that I experienced a bit of it when I moved to Australia with my wife. Jay probably experienced a bit of it when he made the move from Nova Scotia to Ontario. And our next guest had his own experience when he came to Canada from Nigeria. A natural storyteller and lyricist, Dinosu, known by his stage name Dino, is a Nigerian-born artist currently based in Ontario. Writing and performing in Lagos during his teenage years shaped his experiences, forming the foundation of his passion for creating music and making the art form a core part of his identity. In this wide-ranging discussion with Dino, we talk about his move to Canada as a teenager, his musical influences, and the different challenges Black people face in Canada versus Nigeria.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new.
Welcome to Down Home, the Nova Scotian experience by 2 Black men. I'm Derek Wise, and as always, we have Jay Jones.
What's up, y'all?
And our conversation this week is with local Toronto musician and recording artist Dino. Dino, what's up, man?
What's up, guys? As you can see, my real name is Dinisu Onyenokwe, but I go by Dino. It's my rap name.
Yes.
Cool. Yes.
So that makes it easier for us, to be honest, man. So, of course, you spent your formative years in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the culture shock of living in Canada, man.
Okay, so I born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. I lived there till I was about 17, and then I moved here for school. So I did like a transition program, then I did university, then I've worked, and here I am now. So a little bit about the culture shock. I mean, first off, the coldest it gets in Nigeria, and this, it was a cold morning for me when it was like 24, 26 degrees.
Yeah.
And air conditioning will go down to 18 degrees, and I'm all bunched up, oh shit, it's mad cold. So cold definitely was the biggest culture shock. The most cold I had experienced personally was I had gone to South Africa in 2004.
Yeah.
And they're on the opposite pole, so their summer is actually their winter, but it isn't anywhere near as cold as this. And then end of summer in London, sometime in the early 2000s as well. So my frame of reference for cold was warped, let me just say. So I had this little jacket that I thought I'm going to Canada. I have my jacket, I'm going to be ready. And then I landed in the middle of March. The day I landed was a snowstorm, so our airline got diverted to Michigan, to Detroit. And because I didn't have an American visa, because as a Nigerian, you need a visa to go into places. So
yeah.
And then there's a law, you can't keep people in the plane for a certain amount of time or something like that. So we had to stand in between the airplane and the airport. So this was in the middle of March. It was crazy. And then, I eventually came to Canada. My sister was here, so she brought me this big jacket and was like, yeah, you need this. So that was the biggest culture shock. And then I'll just say generally, from a mental perspective, I think I was born and raised in Nigeria. I had a relatively, at least for a Nigerian context, liberal upbringing. But overall, Nigeria is a very conservative society. And I think moving here, that was also a big culture shock, it's a very liberal society, I remember I moved to Hamilton. So I did a transition program for 1 year so I could apply for university.
Mhm.
or well, for 9 months, from March to about December. And then I remember going to Hamilton. I moved to Hamilton, and I would walk. I would walk to school like in the summers and everything, or even initially, like I just walked all the time because I was like, yeah, it's good exercise.
Yeah.
And I would see like in people's windows, like all those death metal symbols, like
Oh,
skulls,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
all of that. So from my Nigerian background, I was like, oh shit, devil worshippers, So
Yeah.
I wasn't exposed to stuff like that. So I just had that mentality of like these guys are like actual like into witchcraft and wizardry and all that shit. So
Yeah.
that was, and then Halloween as well
Yeah, that'll
wasn't a
be
thing in
that'll be
Nigeria.
whack. Yeah.
So that was also like a big culture shock, just kind of like seeing people dressing up as like witches and like skeletons and all of these spooky things. I mean, I had seen it on TV, but like to be in it, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be caught outside with witches walking around and all of that. So that was like a thing as well.
Yeah.
And then I guess just building more on like the liberal culture as well. I think there's just a different attitude. Like there's just a different attitude. It's like it's a lot more laid back, a lot more like. I don't want to ascribe any reasons as to why people are laid back here, but like there's less of a fire lit under people, and there's just a lot more societal protections.
Yeah.
So it's like work is in Nigeria. You wake up at like 5 a.m. to get to work for 7 a.m. to work till 9 p.m. Sometimes you can't leave before your boss leaves. So that was the kind of culture I grew up in. It's like whatever the top says, you do, and you overdo, in fact. And even like in the education system, because I came here for school originally, so that was my initial experience. Like, before tests and exams, like the teacher would stay in front of the class and be like, "Okay, so we're going to be testing you on chapter 1. So read from page 23 to page 44." Like we didn't get that in Nigeria. It's just like,
really,
yeah.
We're testing you, and you better know what we're testing you on. So
Life is a test. Yeah.
Basically, so it was a lot more like you need to be ready, and like
wow,
there wasn't any like there were like rankings, so you knew if you were top of the class and if you were bottom of the class. So it was very much like a cutthroat type of environment. And I think coming here was a little bit more like, oh, I have a test tomorrow and I know exactly what I should be reading, like that. That's easy,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one is better or the other. It's just like the attitudes to like work and like school and all of that. And then I guess also the culture shock here as well is like I grew up in, and I think we're probably going to touch on this later on, but like I grew up in Nigeria, like the most populous Black nation in the world. It's also like I grew up in Lagos, which is also like a multicultural city. So there were like Chinese people, there were Indian people, there were like white people that we all kind of mingled with, but they were the minority.
Yeah.
So I was part of the majority. So I never had, and then I'm really into history. So I study history. So I know my roots, so I never felt lesser than, like I always had a very full perspective of what was going on, even just interacting with people in like out here. So coming here and kind of like learning about the Black experience for like Black North Americans was like a big shock to me as well, because I'm like, like why? Because I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have heard, Nigerians come here and thrive, but like, and to us, we're kind of like, oh, but you guys have everything, why are people still so stuck? And it's hard to understand until you actually see the relationship between like the state and the population, and then the Black, marginal populations and communities as well. So I think all of those things together kind of were like a shock to me, because I grew up, I traveled a bit as a kid, but that was like, now I'm here, I'm like the minority, so all of that was like.
So like living amongst it is a very different thing than traveling. That my mom used to tell me that like when you're traveling, you get to sample the actual culture.
Smiley faces.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember being in Cuba and speaking to a guy on the resort and the guy got so upset. He was like, this isn't Cuba. This isn't Cuba. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's not Cuba. We're on vacation, right? But so when you're on vacation, you get to sample the positive things. But once you're here and living in it, you're eating the main course, right?
Yeah.
Seeing it on a day-to-day basis. So like what kind of things, what was your age when you came here?
I moved here young. Yeah.
Okay. So what did moving here and seeing all these things that you'd never seen or experienced before, how did those things, and seeing how sort of the Black population was sort of treated differently in the guise of North America, what kind of things did that do to your psyche? Did you feel out of place, or was your roots, knowing your knowledge of self and your roots, did that just sort of make you want to thrive more?
Yeah, so I moved here at 17. Like I came here for like university. So that was kind of, at the time I didn't think anything of it, because most people in Nigeria like go to school like in the States or in UK or Canada or even India, like Ukraine, Russia, different places, because our system is broken for many reasons. Like I'm not dissing Nigeria, but that's just what it is,
Yeah.
So I think, and then also taking it back, like experiencing it is something different. And not, even though I was a majority in Nigeria, like as a whole, as a people back there, and this is kind of why when we come here, we're like, oh, but there's so much out here. Like you guys have access to, you have a Canadian passport, you can literally do anything you want. So I did, like, as a Nigerian, you do experience like discrimination. It's like inbuilt, it's like and I did history, so I understood the roots of everything, but I still experienced it, like I used to play basketball. Like I thought I was going to be like a football, like soccer player or basketball player. That was my ultimate goal in life. Even coming here as well was kind of for basketball,
Right.
So I had the experience when I was in Nigeria where, so I played at a pretty high level. And after high school, like we were supposed to like represent the country in some tournament in Poland, and they didn't give us visas because they're like, oh yeah, these guys, there's no proof you're gonna come back home, like all this marginal stuff, right? So I lost out on that experience, and I was very conscious of it. So coming out here, I think that maybe helped my immersion here, because first off, I didn't have that inferiority complex. I knew what I was,
right,
and I expected certain people to be a certain way. So I don't necessarily think it's. I expected it, like I'm like, there's going to be, it's 50-50. There's going to be stupid people, and there's going to be people who think sensibly, Right. So
yeah.
From that perspective, I think it wasn't too much of a, like I was ready. I was just ready for the experience generally. So I don't think it didn't throw me off so much. It was just more like kind of seeing the perspective of like North Americans, where it's like, okay, so this is, imagine growing up in this, it creates a certain mindset, self-image, so
Well, and having that self-awareness sort of makes you sort of, you're that place in between where you can see the perspective and knowing what to expect. So that's a good way to be. Yeah,
definitely. Now we've noticed that like your online presence, that you really kind of hooked into like a Nigerian creative community here in Toronto. Like tell us how that came about.
So I think, like I said, I went to a transition program like in Hamilton. So I was there for like 9 months, and then I moved to Toronto, and I've been here ever since. So I've been in Toronto since like 2009 till now. So I've been here for 15 years now, I think. Something about that. So in my transition school, it was mostly Nigerians and other immigrants and Africans, like Asians and stuff like that. So I had that was my experience coming in here, right? So I came in here with people who are just like me,
Yeah.
And then I went to York University, which is like a university that has a large African community and like, I guess, immigrant community or international student community, for lack of a better term. So I was always kind of in and around that. And I've made music since I was in like high school. So since I was maybe 12, 13, I've been writing. And since I was like 14, 15, I was in a group. We wrote, recorded, released songs, performed around town. So I was always I played basketball, but I made music as well.
Journeyman, headed for another tournament on another land. Shout out to all my brothers, man, and the girls who held me down when the niggas feeling all down and under, man. These words that I'm about to say is the boy you're looking at in front of you would rather stay, but I gotta levitate before the gravity brings me back to reality in a different place.
Like school was just a thing, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
But so I've always kind of been in and around people who make music. So when I came out here, I kind of kept the same energy and like gravitated towards like-minded people. So through my immersion program, like I met one of the guys who makes a lot of my beats, like the Burkina Faso track, for example. Like it's someone I met in that program, like the transition program. And then in university as well, like, you know, you perform at like open mics at like different student event shows and things like that. And, you know, I mean, obviously I had to settle, like, 'cause, you know, to immigrate, you need to get a certain job, you need to have certain things. So it might have taken a back seat, but I always kind of, that community just kind of grew because I came with like-minded people, met those people, and then we just kind of kept growing our community pretty much. So
yeah, it's interesting how you gravitate towards people of like mind, huh? Like it's kind of a natural, organic type of thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing because then, you know, you kind of all are doing your own thing, your own identity, but you're growing together as the same, but pursuing the different dreams. And then some passions that always kind of been there, you kind of start sort of pursuing a little bit more with that help. So, I mean, that's how I kind of met you in the sort of, you know, at an open mic, and you could see the people coming together and people just wanting to share who they are, no judgment. And it's a really good feeling to be around when you're in it. So that leads to, of course, you know, you said you started writing at 12 or 13. Was it always sort of music? And what was that spark that ignited that for you? Like, what made you want to sort of step outside of your regular world and explore your world? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think I started off with like poetry. So I would just write like 1 page, 2 pages, just like write and just keep writing. There was like no structure to it. So that's me personally. I would just write. Because I read a lot as a kid. Like I read all the time. So like I read a lot of books, like local authors, international authors. My mom like is a very big reader. So I would just like go pick up her book and just read it. Like, so I kind of had a good grasp of the English language, I think. And I would just like write about whatever I was feeling and just write. And I think obviously with the internet age, like lyrics became a big thing. So you would download like 50 Cent songs and like the lyrics, and then go to school and just like I know the lyrics to this song. So then a couple of my friends would just like do that, and then at some point one of my friends in high school came back from like a summer vacation trip, and his parents got him a laptop, got him a microphone, got him like Fruity Loops, and he just, because he was very musical, so he played like a lot of instruments, and he just made this CD and just brought like 5 copies and just said you. And then we just started writing from there, and then recording, and then we just kind of kept it going from there. So that's kind of cool. How it started.
cool. And now from that, listening to some of your music, and seeing some of your performances, you can definitely hear a lot of the eclectic influences that you have, range from soul to hip hop to Afro beats. Now, how did coming to North America? How did North American hip hop play a part in influencing your style, different from the one they already had?
Yeah. So I think African music. Nigerian music has always been great and like has always been a part of the broader like what I'll term like black sound, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. So even like in the jazz days, like we had High Life, which is the same type of influence where it's like the saxophones, the bass, the keys, and then the vocals and everything. So we kind of had very similar vibes. Like literally all the music that was happening out here was happening back there. It's just it wasn't the internet age, and it wasn't what it is. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I think there's always been that like cross influence, especially to Nigeria, because we consume a lot of like North American and Caribbean music. So
yeah. Writing this song for Burkina Faso and Ghana too. Wahala day, they're trying to take her away, but no way, Jose, stay baby, don't go. Look what we've done. Prize got us torn, money got us hungry for the fucking unattainable. It is a nightmare, quite scary. Yeah, leadership just gets worse. I'm starting to believe it's a curse. Looking past the sunset. Damn, it's funny how the words redefine fucking history. See, Mali's trying to break up. Sudan already broke up. Sit praying to God that we wake up. Cause Nigeria's on the road. Pray to God that we make up. Fishy, ain't it? Cause the money never gets to the poor, but somehow the poor's paying for the shit. And Somalia's on fire too. Gaddafi died too. I'm stuck in two worlds.
Like we had MTV, like cable, so we had like all of the American Caribbean songs, like really big in Nigeria, like TV and radio. So it was always kind of in and around.
Yeah.
So I would say,
sorry. And I didn't mean to interrupt. And Fela Kuti was a big influence, like encompassing all those worlds too. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking about Fela Kuti, man. That's huge. Actually, I don't think it was you, Jay, who introduced me to Fela Kuti. I forget who it was. Someone brought me a CD years ago, and I was playing it, and I was like. It was hilarious. I said, "Who's this fella? Who's this guy? Who's this guy, Fela Kuti?" But again, before internet, right? So you can't search and actually see what Fela Kuti is, right?
Yeah. And he was big out here too. Like he was big in like the UK and States, like in terms of even touring and everything. So he was big. But obviously it was pre-internet age, so you have to kind of be in it to know. But yeah, I'll say like just it's always been side by side. And I think the difference now is with the internet, it's like, you know, having easy access to just downloading songs. Like this was like maybe early 2000s. You're just like, oh, song came out, downloaded.
True.
Like I said, you get lyrics. So all of those things kind of came together to at least influence me as a person, you know? And there were also lots of concerts with like dancehall artists, reggae artists, hip hop artists, like coming back home and performing. Like at the time I was growing up. So you'll find local artists tended to make similar types of music. So kind of influenced by soul. So there was heavy R&B, like heavy soul, like heavy hip hop, like heavy reggae, heavy dancehall. Dancehall was a little more niche because, like I said, it's a conservative society. Yeah, but it definitely had its place, like in the clubs and like outside when you go out and stuff. So, I'll say African music has always been great. It just kind of became more mainstream, like with the opening of access to, like, even look at TikTok, like in the pandemic, like Nigerian music blew up just because it started trending on TikTok and going viral. So it's always been great. It's just kind of now more out there, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, definitely. Like I even find now, like I'm watching a show or something like that, and like a clip of a song will come up, and you take your cell phone out and you can search just from the clip of music. The clip comes up and it's actually populated on my phone already. No matter where the artist is or how big or small the artist is or where they're from. So definitely agree with you that it's more Shazam. More access, right? More access.
Yeah. And then also, sorry, just one more thing. So I guess even with all of that access, this is, I guess, the new dimension to it. There's a lot more confidence in the content. So you're finding a lot more original, like it's always been from an original place, but you're finding a lot more like local, like languages, local dialects, local influences in the music. So it is kind of expanding, even though it's kind of always been out there. So
and even in this day and age, it's, of internet and people being able to upload their things quickly, people are able to work on albums, upload to Spotify. You find people finding a little bit more confidence in themselves to actually share what they're going through and exploring that, because no matter what, man, I always say expression in music, it's timeless. It brings people together, and all these influences that we've experienced over the years, man, we can put that and spin it into our own, and express yourself if that's what you want to do. Now we touched upon it a little bit, but in your mind, is there a difference how Black people are treated here in Canada versus Nigeria? I mean, you came from sort of a place where you were kind of the majority, so coming here, other than the culture shock, what have you noticed, even systemically?
I would say yes and no. Probably controversial. I know, like, even amongst my friends, I'm the only person who has like the perspective I have. Or let me not say the only one, but I think yes and no, because the dynamics that operate here kind of also operate in Nigeria as well. So Nigeria is kind of divided along like class and ethnic lines. So we're here, like there's almost like there's an assumption of your social status when someone maybe not more so now, like in 2023, but I think maybe when I just came, it was more like of an assumption of your social status based on your race. And, people feel like inherently better than you just because, like, I was having this discussion like recently, like just like a bum on the street thinks like, like, go back to your country. I'm like, yo, chill, like, So there's just an assumption of your social status because like maybe you're Black, and everyone just feels better than you. And, but that's the thing as well. Like I've learned here is it's not everyone. It's like a bell curve. Like you're gonna have the people who are like, I'm better than you, and you're gonna have the people who like are more level-headed and like, oh yeah, like we're humans. So I think that's like a big thing I've realized is even in these groups, these like oppressive groups, like there is like a division somewhere in the middle. Because like I said, so that's why yes and no, because here there's an assumption of what you are and who you should be because of what you look like. In Nigeria, the same dynamics, because I think here it's like a social status or a class thing. And the same thing kind of happens in Nigeria. Obviously, if you're at the top of the totem pole, like you're going to get no harassment from the police. You're going to get everything you want. Everybody's going to like feed you like or serve you hand and foot. And then there's also the other dynamic as well, which is maybe similar to the way like race in the North American context is, where depending on what tribe you're from, there are the major tribes. Even within the major tribes, they are the dominant ones politically speaking, and the ones who basically control the public service, the army, and all the institutions of government. And depending on where you're from, you'll kind of get a certain type of treatment. So for example, here in Canada, if you're a black billionaire, they might treat you maybe not as good as a white billionaire, but you would still get a lot of favorable treatments, you know? And if you were a black regular person, you're going to be like lower on the totem pole. So it's similar in Nigeria where like, depending on your tribe, you're going to be either at the top or at the bottom of the totem pole. And then if you're at the bottom tribe-wise, but you're rich, obviously you rise up. And then it's just that whole dynamic that plays out. So ultimately, I think my experience in Canada in that sense has kind of given me a different lens on like, you know, what it would take to kind of, or let me say the types of alliances that are needed to kind of emancipate the people from their pain and suffering. Because a lot of people here in the marginal communities, and even just generally speaking, like, let's just say non-Black folks who are protesting oppression or whatever, we're all fighting the same people. And they're all working together. Like the top of the pile in Nigeria is working with the top of the pile out here to exploit everybody. So ultimately, I think that's kind of what one thing my experience here has kind of given me, that like, it's not necessarily a racial or, I mean, it is, don't get me wrong, because humans are tribal, but the bigger issue is more, I think, class and authority than that, I think. So
and money.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think Jay, you were just about to say it, that you know, those that control the resources, and the major resource being money, are those that are more powerful, and they basically dictate. So that it kind of translates from Nigeria to Canada, you know. That's what I'm hearing you say there. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the cycle continues, because even if you look at the slave trade, right, you know, they came in and
it was Africans who were selling people.
Yeah, man. And
those same people, that's the thing, those same people are the people in power back home today. Right. And you know, there's another thing I learned here is there's this perspective, at least from what I've gleaned, I don't know if it's a blanket thing, but like where North Americans, the same way Africans look at North Americans, they're like, oh, but you have everything. Why aren't you? North Americans also look at Africans and they're like, first off, you sold us off. You sold us out. And you can't fix your shit. You know, they don't understand that it's still kind of the same system we're living in. With maybe a little bit more liberties in certain ways, but it's still the same power structures and groups specifically that are working together to exploit the globe. Let's put it like that.
Well, you know, when it comes down to it, for your average person, especially people of color, there's more that links us together than makes us different.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And like hearing you talk about your experiences in Nigeria just kind of solidifies that fact. Now, I understand. I hope you can still. You were going to bless us with some words or some song or something like that. Could you do a little something like that for us?
Yeah, but before you get started on all that, I do want to do a shout out to Lalo Brewery. This is how Dino and I met, and you know, we had a great conversation after one of the performances, and that's how I was able to ask him to be on the podcast. So I want to give a shout out to Lalo Brewery. They're you know, a small brewery, small place, hip hop community, just bringing people really together to do their things. Always. I love it. And I want to give a shout out to Ariel Sim and Chelsea for hosting Soul Slam, which they do monthly, where people can come and share themselves. I've been there twice, performed twice. You feel good. It's a good night of creativity and people sharing what they do. So I just wanted to mention those. So now I'm going to give it up to you there, Dino.
Yeah. Shout out to Soul Slam and Lalo Brewery. Soul Slam, cool collective of a cool duo, I guess, of people, and a very nice community they're building. And Lalo as well is a really nice spot. Yeah. And for those who don't know, I'm sure some of you do, but Jay is also like a nice lyricist as well. So he comes out and spits 1-2 bars. So
thanks, man.
don't judge me too harshly on what I rap afterwards, because I know you're also skilled at that.
Hey man, listen, everyone has a story to tell, man.
Yeah. So just to get into it, so I am putting out a project. What would be April the 19th, so next week Wednesday, based on when we're recording this. You can edit this out if if it doesn't apply. But next week, Wednesday, April 19th, I'm putting out my project. It's called Journeyman EP. These are songs I've had for a while. I'll say I wrote these songs like between 7 to 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you, just career, trying to like settle and doing different things. So it's kind of like taken me a while to put it out for many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of getting to a point where like well, maybe not recently, but I've always written a lot. So I was like, well, getting new beats, and I'm like, I'm just going to work on some new things, and I'm just going to put all these songs to the side. So Journeyman EP is going to be 3 songs, 3 of my old songs.
Mm-hmm.
I have a ton of them that like I didn't actually get to put out, but it's all good. So I just decided, you know what, before working on any new things, like a few people who had listened to my stuff were like, yeah, no, it still sounds tight, it still sounds solid. So it's old to you, but it's new to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if it still sounds good today, then I mean, maybe there is something there, you know? So
yeah.
I kind of, sorry, Jay, you go.
No, music is timeless, man. It doesn't really matter. You know, you got to tell your story, and sometimes it takes time. And when you're ready, you're ready. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, perfect time is always now, you know?
Yeah,
so
it's now only always.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 3 songs, Journeyman EP. I am I'm having a release party event as well. It's going to be in Hale Coffee, which is close to DuPont and Lansdowne if you're in Toronto. So if you hear this before then, pull up or hit me up on socials and we could connect and like, you know, I'll figure something out. Tell you when I'm performing next or whatever the case is. But okay, so I'm going to do one verse from one of the 3 songs. It's the last song on the project called Change. I do this thing where I call the song the first thing that comes to my mind, and then I just kind of work through the iterations. So initially, this song was called Change, comma, We Have To. And the hook goes, and it's the change we have to make it better. Been waiting my whole life for this moment. Celebrate life tonight for this. Every time you hear this song, say that right from here, I'm gonna care. I'm gonna change everything. I swear I'm gonna fix up my ways, and it's just the change that we have to make. So change we have to is just kind of pulling something out of there, but it's evolved into just being called Change.
Yeah.
And I actually have like an awesome singer, like a good friend of mine, Sade Awele, like an R&B singer based in Vancouver. She does the hook, so sounds way better than it just sounded now. So
sounded good, man.
The verse goes, and I like the song. It's kind of an uplifting song. I think I wrote it kind of to give me that vibe. So it's the first verse in the song, and it goes, "What you saying? Get up. Ain't the time to let up. Every day is a fresh chance to fix your setup. You can get it better. You just need that first step to set off, but don't forget your sweater. It's a cold world out there today. Just hope your heart is pure and your head is straight. Nothing wrong with waking up and striving for better days. Whatever it is you're doing, that's your piece of cake. However you make your bed, you lay. But in any case, I'm still in charge. Still got some sort of chance in control of the plans. Outcome depends totally upon these hands and their input. Simply put, I gotta dig into the dirt to find gold, and that's the method I'm into. Sprinter, school of hard knocks representer. Took some harder knocks, so I'm a bit more chill. But read into the will and skill, that's where it's sealed. And it's the change we have to make it better. Been waiting my whole life for this moment. Celebrate life tonight for this. Every time you hear this song, say that right from here, I'm gonna care. I'm gonna change everything. Swear I'm gonna fix up my ways, and it's just the change that we have to make. Yeah. So that's
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
That's the way to do it. Thanks for sharing it. And that's acapella is tough to do, man. So, you know, and it sounded good, and the lyrics are important, and, you know, I can see how, you know, you want to express yourself, and everyone wants to strive to be a better person. So thanks for continuing to do that message in your way, right? We all have a part in it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Dino, this awesome conversation, man. It was really nice meeting you. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap up, man?
No, I mean, just my project's out April 19th. I'm having a show as well, DuPont and Lansdowne Hail Coffee. You could check my Instagram, DNOS_WVRLD, so Dinos_world. And you can see like any updates or all the links to all the shows and all the projects and everything. So you can check me out there. Hit me up if you have anything you want to share, if you want to chat, whatever the case is. I'm down to connect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. Thank you very much for coming on, man.
Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So one last thing. Yeah, man. It was an honor to meet you when I did, and it was an honor to have some conversations, and it was good to finally get you on the podcast to share some of your story, different perspectives, different experiences. But we're all in the same gang, as they say, and you know, just keep doing your thing, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Jay. Appreciate you, Derek.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you, man.
Yeah, much love.
All right.
Likewise.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground.
You have been listening to Down Home. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground.
The instrumental for the song Change and the song Burkina Faso are courtesy of Dino.
Now it's time to flex with the force from the soul, reaching all aspects, getting deep, no time to sleep as you reach your next phase, laying it all on the line. New trails start to blaze, it's a fire inside, a brand new path, breaking down the sum to one, feeling free, I just laugh with the joy of
the song Breaking New Ground from The Breakdown.
Like magic prescribed, only to see the perfect blend, like a diamond in the rough, ready to drop a perfect gem. It's time to shine so fine to see what you find. Revolution.